Hello, I'm Doug Musio. This is City Talk. On February 15th, New York City Council Speaker Christine Quinn delivered her 5th annual State of the City address. Some reactions. The Times. Quinn criticizes Bloomberg plan to cut spending. The Journal. Quinn calls budget a job killer. The News. Christine Quinn criticizes Bloomberg in an effort to prepare for a possible 2013 mayoral bid. The Staten Island Advance, madness at Muni meter spots would cease under proposal by Speaker Quinn. Now, before the speech, a Chris Smith piece in New York Magazine was headlined, Chris Quinn's State of the City, more than just a speech. Was it? To talk about the state of the city, the state of the budget, pensions, debt, capital construction, Walmart, taxes and cuts, mayoral politics, and more is Council Speaker Christine Quinn. She has served as Speaker since 2006 and is council member from the 3rd Councilmanic District in Manhattan since 1999. Welcome back, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Before we get into policy and politics, let's get personal. Have you ever shot a moose?
No. I've never met a moose.
You never met a moose?
Never met a moose.
Would you understand the country if you had shot a moose?
I don't think I would understand the country or the city any better if I had met, shot, or did anything with a moose.
Okay, did you ever have a shoot a moose moment? No. So
I think the closest I ever got was, being next to Staten Island Chuck the day he bit the mayor.
But he didn't bite you?
He would never.
Uh-oh.
Some girls don't need a shotgun. All you need to look is a look in your eye.
Oh, mama's look. Oh, right. Man.
He wouldn't dare.
Okay, I got it. Okay, let's turn to the state of the city. Let's talk policy before we talk politics. Chris Smith in New York Magazine on February 14th wrote this piece about your previous State of the City speeches, and he said it would always be looked at in the lens of politics, and it has been. But also, he argues that quote, among the platitudes, I mean, obviously, he's got to take a little shot, her 4 previous State of the City addresses as council speaker have contained an unusually high number of good ideas. What were the good ideas in the February 15th speech?
Well, that's a big compliment, and I thank Chris for it. I mean, some of our good ideas were having 5-borough ferry service. We're going to see a big part of that start this spring along the East River from Brooklyn and Queens. Another big part of it was expanding the work we're doing around 1.6 million New Yorkers who don't have their high school diploma, improving the system around getting a GED.
Let's stop there just for a moment. I mean, on the Times editorial page on February 20th, the editorial said, good investment in tough times. Do you smile on your face and a fist pump with that one?
Well, it was great. I mean, it was great to have the council's work recognized, but more important, it was great to have the New York Times affirm that we need to do more to help New Yorkers get their GEDs. That's going to help people get jobs, and that's one of the most important things we can do in the council right now. And to have the energy and attention building around that, not to have these folks just written off anymore, is a huge step forward in our effort to join with these 1.6 million New Yorkers and help them help their families.
Yeah, and in fact, that speech had both big things and smaller things, but one of the things that it had was things that had an impact, whether it was parking, whether it was tickets, affordable housing. We'll talk about all of those things. The mayor delivered his State of the City address earlier. How is the city, as you see it now and in the future, different from the way the mayor sees it?
Well, I think the way a speaker, the head of a legislative body, views a city is always going to be different than the way a mayor views a city. I mean, we are the branch of government closest to a New Yorker. So we have a job to, yes, look at things on a macro level, as a mayor might, budget, things of that nature, but we also have an additional obligation to look at things on the micro, block by block level that maybe an executive, be they the mayor or a governor or whatever, doesn't see in the same way. We have that additional responsibilities, and we can never let the huge looming problems distract us from that additional work that we are sent to City Hall to do, whether it's making it easier for people to park, whether it's making it easier for people to find affordable housing, whether it's making it easier for people who have absentee slumlord landlords get their buildings fixed up.
So what we see here then is the big stuff and the small stuff, but the big stuff attracted a lot of attention. I mean, in fact, these pieces that cite Quinn criticizes mayor, it was over Capitol construction. Talk about this difference between what you see and what the mayor sees and how you would like to proceed.
You know, the mayor is right to say that we have a growing debt service bill every year that's too large. Right now, out of every tax dollar a New Yorker pays, 14 cents goes to debt service. That's going to grow in a few years to 16 cents. That's $6.9 billion. That is a significant amount of money. He's right to say we need to do something about it. One of the ways he wants to do something about it is to cut the capital budget by 20%, which 5-10 years from now will achieve debt service. It doesn't help you today. It's a move towards the long term. I agree we need to change things so in the long term we can save money. But if you cut the capital budget, he originally said 20%, now 10%, you are going to cost people jobs. Our capital budget, which is about $10 billion, sustains about 55,000 jobs. A 10% cut, you can do the math.
Right.
And New York City's government's capital budget is one of the only parts of the construction industry that is operating. So those are people who will get laid off and not have a high rise or something else to build because that's just not happening right now. Okay, so what else can you do? You can address taking down debt service by taking a portion of our capital budget, I would argue a tenth of it, and commit to pay that out of pocket in a pay-as-you-go model. If you took $1 billion a decade ago and began paying capital $1 billion out of expense as a pay-as-you-go, we would next year have a $500 million savings in debt service. That would mean we'd have $500 million we wouldn't owe to debt service. That's half of our Department of Sanitation budget. Now look, I know tomorrow I can't put $1 billion into pay-as-you-go, but the moment we're in right now, let's seize it. Let's recognize we have to get this expense under control. Let's commit to do it. Make the commitment, open the account, if you will. Then as revenues increase, we can put the money in there. We'll keep people working, and we'll move to a structure that will achieve long-term savings.
Also, you're building infrastructure. You're producing a good as well. Okay, so let's move to the big story, budget.
Yes.
Where are we? It looks like the conventional wisdom is cut the expense side. Is there any revenue side to this problem?
I mean, we will have to make more cuts. We don't know how many yet, depending on what happens in Albany and with the federal government. We'll have to make more cuts to both our expense budget and other places. Now, we are lucky compared to other cities because in the first 3 years I was speaker, when we had surpluses, the council and the mayor put money aside in a trust fund. We still have over $2 billion in that trust fund. We will use those monies to help reduce the amount of cuts we have to make in this year's budget. That'll help us weather the storm as it has. A place I think we need to look beyond the expense budget is the contracts budget. We contract out $10 billion worth of services.
And I think the DOE contracts out half of that. I mean,
and that part of the budget has grown much faster than any other part of the budget in the past 5 years. Next year, if we just held the contract budget flat, didn't even cut it, just held it flat, didn't do cost of living increases and things like that that are built in, we could save $100 million. $100 million is 1,700 school teachers. If we are saying to municipal workers, think about reworking your pensions, you might get laid off, we should be saying the same kind of things to these outside for-profit corporations who are doing business with us.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the administration that's hiring these outside consultants. It's not the outside consultants' fault.
No, not at all.
It's policy of the various agencies and departments in city government. How do we rein that in? And can the council do it institutionally?
We can raise it, as we will, during all of our budget hearings, and we will raise it during our budget negotiation process. You know, this past winter, the mayor proposed a series of budget cuts, some of which we agreed with, some we didn't. Part of the $35 million we restored to those cuts came from cutting contracts that the Department of Education had with information and technology companies and outside professional development companies. So we've already started, and we will keep that going.
And the presumption is that you're not hurting the ability of the department to do what it's supposed to do.
No, look.
So there's a lot of stuff, and that's only one example.
And look, we're still feeling the impacts of the recession.
Right.
So if a company that has a contract with the city of New York, that's a good gig if you can get it.
Right.
And you want to keep that for the long term. So if you say to them, no COLA next year, or take your costs down 3, 4, 5%, they're going to do it. They're not going to walk away from a contract with the biggest city in the country.
Is there the will to do it?
There is the will. There has to be the will on both sides of City Hall to balance next year's budget in a way that is fair. And after 9 rounds of cuts to the expense budget, you have to think broadly.
Okay. Bad word. Taxes.
Yes.
Revenue enhancement.
Yes.
Millionaires tax. Is there a way, can the city, and really more the state, so it's a state question, get out of its budgetary predicament without revenue enhancement tax?
You know, the governor, I think, has made very clear that is not somewhere he wants to go. I think Governor Cuomo has been abundantly clear about that. I think we will see that get debated up in Albany. I think more than likely the budget ends without there being a millionaire's tax, but, you know, those negotiations will take their course.
Let's talk about pensions, public employee unions. There seems to be an emerging narrative that public employees, and maybe this is self-interested, are the bête noirs of this story, that they're the bad guys. I mean, we see the situation in Wisconsin that has, it looks like it's going to spread. Talk about pensions, the difficulty with pensions, and what we ought to do with pensions.
You know, when I gave my State of the City speech on the 15th, I said that, and I believe this, we need to make pension and benefit reform. I also said 2 other things that didn't get much attention, which is that, one, that there is no one group to blame. We are all collectively responsible for the amount of pension costs we have now. So finger pointing is just not productive. And I also said that the mayor and labor unions need to be equally open to negotiating and hearing ideas. We need to achieve savings to sustain a pension system for all workers, not just those who are retired. The mayor's put out a bunch of ideas which clearly the unions don't like, and he's already stepped back on some of them. We need to have other ideas, we need to achieve savings, and we need to engage in constructive conversation to do that.
Ideas?
Well, we're reviewing right now all of the mayor's different proposals. I think the proposal the mayor put out after his State of the City, where he expanded on his proposal to cut the $12,000.
Right.
He originally said just to do it for people who hadn't retired. He then expanded that to take that away from retirees. Look, that's a terrible idea. If somebody retired 20 years ago, they know they get $12,000 every, winter. You can't take that away from them.
There's an ex post facto quality about it.
I mean, just totally pulling the rug out from under somebody. So those type of ideas we should stay away from and look for things, I think, moving forward. Wisconsin,
comment. I mean, you lead a legislature.
I think I understand why the governor says his state needs to achieve savings. I don't know the ins and outs of his budget, and I don't want to. I got my own budget.
Right.
But, I understand why someone would want to achieve savings, and pensions are one of those parts of the budget kind of referred to as uncontrollable sometimes because they grow. You can understand that. But to say the only way to do it, or one of the only ways to do it, is to take away a union's right to collectively bargain, that is going way too far. I mean, you're basically saying you can't have a union. And for a governor to be in a position where he or she is saying, change this, change that, change the other thing, that's understandable, you know, raise the retirement age, this other thing. But to basically say, my job here is to bust the union and make them nothing, which they are nothing if they can't collectively bargain, that's just too far.
And it's happening in other states. I mean, Ohio's looks like they're going to do it in a number of other states. Okay, from a legislative leader's point of view, put yourself in a position of the Democrats who are walking out and hiding.
It's a terrible spot to be in. I mean, it's kind of government, you know, at its worst, that for whatever reason, and I don't know all the ins and the outs in Wisconsin, but that people are in a place where they can't even talk. They can't even be in a room together. I mean, it's really very, very discouraging, and I understand completely, and it really, from the outside, looks like it's just an assault on working people.
Okay, let's go back to the state of the city. Several of the other things that got a lot of notice, and one of the things that I have to say is reading all the clips, your communications folks did an excellent job because each of the pieces focuses on something else. It was like it was planned. Now, obviously, all the stuff about you running in 2013, I don't know if that was planned, but let's look at it. Small business, parking, and affordable housing. Talk about these.
And you know, I think the communications folks did a great job. Also, our policy and legislative folks have done a great job, because I've constantly said to folks, we need to have bills and policies that relate to people's lives. And we actually have a council staff program where we chart what calls and emails every office gets. The #1 call or email we get is about housing, which is why we had a robust housing section in the speech. And with all of the housing we're developing, we still have people call and say, I can't figure out how to get apartment in the building next door. And it's the 21st century, you know, you can do just about everything online. But to get an affordable apartment,
you explain it, it's Byzantine.
So you see a building go up in your neighborhood. You've got to find out what program or the developer's name, send him or her a postcard. There could be 3 buildings in your neighborhood. That's 3 postcards. Then they're going to mail you paperwork. Then you're going to fill it out. Then the Pony Express is going to come, and they're going to take it back. It's ridiculous. And then all of these applications go in a big sack, locked up. It's really his kind of tamper-proof. They shake the sack up, they dump it on the ground, and they pull the 20 applications out. And those are the 20 people who won the apartment. It's absurd. So we've worked with HPD. We're developing an online housing application. You put your info in. You check what neighborhood you want to live in, a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, whatever. You chart the buildings you want. You can check your application online. You can update with a push of a button a new building whose lottery you want to go in. It's an efficient 21st century system. And in addition to making it easier for the New Yorkers who want the apartment, now we can actually know how many people applied and didn't get it? What neighborhoods have the biggest interest? It can make our housing development more strategic, which is a really good byproduct.
But you read these things and then you sort of, you know, it's a head slapper. I mean, why didn't somebody think of this before? I don't know.
You know, you can say that about almost every good idea, but why? Just do it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll continue.
Exactly.
Okay, parking.
Yes.
A big concern. I mean, you know, I'm a Queens boy. I remember parking. Forget it. Now, parking is a big issue. And also, it's a geographically dispersed issue. Talk about the perils and problems of parking and the promise of parking.
Well, the perils are endless. The promise is not as endless, unfortunately. But, you know, one of the big complaints we get from New Yorkers is it's hard to find a parking spot. And we heard from people.
And you get tickets when you park.
And you get tickets when you park. And you get tickets. It's one thing to pull up to a spot and go, I think this might be illegal, but I'm going to run in. I'm going to take a risk. But people park, they think it's legal, and then it's not. Drives you crazy. Or you park, you walk, a couple hundred yards to the Muni meter, pay. Now, you couldn't ESP your credit card or your money to that Muni meter. You had to walk there. So technically, in those 90 seconds, you had not paid to park. What else were you going to do? Now you come back to your car, and the traffic enforcement agent has written you a check.
Does this happen frequently?
All the time.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And you say to the traffic enforcement agent, no, here's my receipt. I was just paying. And they say, I can't shred a ticket once I started writing it, which somehow is like canon law now. I don't understand.
I know. They're ex-cathedra.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we are going to pass a bill that says if you show your receipt to the traffic enforcement agent, and it is for a reasonable period of time, you were clearly just paying,
right,
they would be allowed to shred the ticket. Because they don't, it's not like they get happy not being able to do it. They're not allowed.
Right.
We will change that law. Now, look, at the end of the day, does that, cure cancer or end world hunger? No. But it takes away one of those little kicks in the ass that make people mad, that make them feel disconnected and angry at their government.
And ticked.
Yeah, and you want to reduce that.
Okay.
Because you want to try to be building a bridge between people and their government, not, throwing them off the side of the bridge.
Okay. Small businesses. Lots of proposals.
Yep.
Basically, sort of almost a one-stop shopping,
right,
easier permit stuff. Talk about and you focused a lot on in the speech on small business, but in your larger agenda, small businesses loom large here.
Very important because they really are, the backbone of New York City's economy. There's lots of conversation about Wall Street and real estate, and they're great. But the most significant employers in our city, the largest number of people, are actually employed by small businesses. We are lost without them as an employer. We're also lost without them as they define the fabric and flavor
of the neighborhoods. Come on, Mr. Joya the shoemaker,
exactly,
the Garibaldi's grocer.
Exactly, and we want to keep that alive. And so we've been talking to small businesses. What makes your life difficult, even when you're not in a recession? They've told us, and we've tried to respond to that. And what I announced in the State of the City is a collaborative effort with the Bloomberg administration, building on a pilot we did. In my State of the City 2 years ago, I suggested that we streamline the process for opening a business.
Right.
We did that. 200 small businesses had their startup time cut by 3 months. We're taking that idea now to businesses at all stages of their development. So instead of a small business owner having to call Department of Health, having to call buildings, having to call this one, having to call that one, you'll call 311. You'll get connected to an NYC Business Link coordinator. That person is now your guy or your gal. They're your go-to person.
You have your personal business at 311?
311 will connect you to NYC Business Link. And NYC Business Link will assign you a coordinator.
Wow.
Now that person's job is to run interference with all the agencies. Okay, Mr. Musio, this is what you want to do. I'll get back to you. These are the permits you need. And then every month...
Is this staffed, and do we have the technology to actually do this?
We definitely have the technology. We're going to phase it in by industry over 2 years.
Okay.
And we do have the staff, because instead of keeping everybody in their little individual pockets, we're going to have one, we're going to coordinate them all. Doesn't cost us more money.
Some of the things that the State of the City address didn't explicitly deal with were some really hot issues. Walmart. I mean, just give me a little bit. Why no Walmart? What's wrong with Walmart?
Well, I didn't talk about it in the speech because we had talked about it a lot before.
Oh,
so I'm not sure.
I understand that.
It deserved more. Walmart, my opposition to Walmart comes largely from my concern about the future of small businesses in New York City. We're working on a regular basis to keep them alive, to help them grow, to help them do better. Walmart, it is a fact, because of their low price point, because of their enormity, when they open, small businesses go under.
I mean, and there's evidence for this. There's data.
There's a University of Chicago professor who is, by his own admission, not anti-Walmart.
I know, he was at the hearing.
He was.
And it was a little bit of a surprise, but were you surprised?
Well, you academics.
Nice.
You don't like to take a position, I'm just saying. But he did a study, and it showed that in the radius around Walmart, the first year after the Chicago Walmart opened, 20 to 25 of the small businesses closed. And that 40% of the small businesses in a larger radius were likely to close over the next 2 years.
And this is directly related to Walmart.
And yes, and he did it before the recession really hit, so you can't disregard it for that.
Then the counter argument is, but you've got Target, you've got BJ, you've got other big box. Why is Walmart different?
For a couple of reasons. One, they are the biggest company in the country. Target, Costco, they don't have that same share of the market. And when they open, you don't see the same small business killing that goes on. We don't see it, one. Two, Walmart being so big, their prices can just be so low, no one can even compete. Three, they have their own kind of internal infrastructure. So for example, when Walmart opens, they don't use the soda distributor in the area. They don't use the food distributor in the area. That isn't true of the other big boxes. So I have a huge concern about Hunts Point, our most important food distributor. If Walmart comes, if Walmart opens, and they're not going to open one store, they've said that. They need a lot. That could put the future of Hunts Point in real jeopardy, and that would destabilize our whole food system.
Okay. The blizzard. What did you learn? What did the council learn? What did the mayor learn from the blizzard?
Well, you know, what the mayor did or didn't learn, and his folks, they'll have to talk about that themselves.
You held really a wonderful set of hearings.
They were great, right? Thank you.
Initial hearings in the 5 boroughs. Maybe more specifically, should we know when the mayor is out of town and who is formally in charge, as Councilmember Vallona suggested?
You know, I think what we need to know is that the snow is going to get picked up, or that whatever the key municipal service is or the key crisis is going to be responded to. And it wasn't. The snow wasn't picked up. The only reason we're talking about where the mayor was because the snow wasn't picked up. And in my opinion, the critical error was to not, or one of the critical errors was to not open the Office of Emergency Management Emergency Center earlier. And then when they opened it too late, they didn't have the senior level people in the OEM center.
But shouldn't we know who's in charge?
The mayor's always in charge, whether he or she is here or anywhere else.
Or in Bermuda.
Wherever they are, they're in charge.
Should we know if he's out of town? And should we know which deputy mayor is in charge?
What I want to know is that the city's going to run.
Okay, okay.
And the key thing on the snow, in my opinion, was they kind of lulled themselves into this sense of it's going to be okay. They should have been on the spot in that command center with the senior people there right away. And the decision process on whether or not to declare a snow emergency needs more transparency.
Okay, I'm almost getting a timeout here. but wait a minute, I got to ask one.
All right, go.
I got to do a political question.
All right.
You've been close to the mayor, and you're expected.
Never met the man.
Okay, and you're expected to run from his job. Why should New Yorkers see a Quinn candidacy as something different from the mayor, which isn't necessarily bad?
Well,
tell me what's the hallmark of a Quinn administration?
Well, I'll talk about what I think the hallmark of my time as Speaker has been. Somebody who is responsive to the needs of New Yorkers. Somebody who puts systems in place, so I'm not just saying that, I can prove it. Somebody who is out there taking city government out of City Hall into neighborhoods to work directly with people. Almost every idea in our State of the City speech was something we heard from the people, the constituency, or the community we're trying to help. We're not governing by fiat, we're governing with the people we're trying to help. And I think that is an important philosophy to bring to government at every level.
Next time we have to talk more politics.
All right.
Okay. My thanks to New York City Council Speaker Christine Quinn for being on the show. See you next week on City Talk. Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Doug Musio. Let us know what you think about this show. You can reach us at CUNY.TV. When you get there, click on the bar that says Contact Us and send your email. Whatever it is. Thanks, no thanks, obnoxious, do it. Send it.